I opened the door like it was any other Tuesday. And then I forgot how to breathe. She stood there, older, beautiful in a way that made time feel irrelevant. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, darker. Her smile was quieter now. But the moment she said, "Do you remember me?" I was 12 again, sitting on the living room floor while she laughed at something on the TV and tossed me popcorn like I was the center of the universe. That I didn't see Lena again for almost a week. But when I did, it wasn't about a window or a repair or anything I could have planned. She called me, not the company, me. Her voice had that same even tone, but there was something quieter underneath. She needed help moving a box from her mother's old house. Heavy stuff, too much for her alone. I said yes before she'd even finished the sentence. The place looked untouched, like time had stalled the moment her mom left it. Photos still on the walls. Old perfume bottles lined up by the dresser. A stack of unopened mail on the table. Lena was standing in the middle of it all, her jacket off, hair a little messy, sleeves pushed up like she'd been fighting the place on her own. "You didn't have to," she started. "I wanted to." I cut in, too quickly. Her eyes flickered over me, like she caught the edge of something I didn't mean to show. The boxes weren't really the problem. They were heavy, sure, but manageable. The real weight was in the silence, the way it filled every corner. I tried to distract myself by watching her instead of staring at the walls. The way she pressed her lips together when she lifted. The crease that formed between her brows. The little sigh when she sat down for a break, tugging her sleeve like it bothered her. She caught me looking once. I looked away, pretending to be fascinated by an old photo frame. "This feels strange," she said finally, half laughing, half sighing. "You helping me here. Why strange?" Her smile was sad. "Because I used to help you. Put you to bed when you faked stomach aches. Hide candy wrappers so your parents wouldn't know. And now," she gestured at the boxes, "now it's you carrying my mess." The words hit harder than I expected. There was an ache in her voice that had nothing to do with the house. I wanted to say something, to ask her why she really called me and not the movers, why she sounded so tired on the phone. But instead I said the safe thing, "Everyone needs help sometimes." She leaned back against the wall, rubbing her palm over her jeans. "I'm not good at that. Asking. Always felt like weakness." Her voice softened. And that was the first moment I felt it, the danger. Not because it was wrong, but because it was close. Because I wanted to be the one she could lean on, and that thought burned hotter than it should have. When I set down the last box, she stood too close. The room was dim now, the sun slipping away. Her hand brushed mine, not like an accident this time. "You don't have to rush off," she said quietly. "Stay, just for a bit." I swallowed hard, trying to find something casual to say. Nothing came. And then her fingers lingered on my arm. Light but deliberate. The air shifted. Words hovered at the edge of my mouth. Ones I shouldn't say. But I couldn't stop thinking them. Now she was standing on my porch with a clipboard, wearing a work shirt with the logo of the contracting company I'd called 2 weeks ago. I cracked a window frame moving furniture. Classic me, and needed a quick fix. Yeah, I said, still holding the door half open. "You were my babysitter, right?" Her smile faltered just slightly, like she wasn't sure if I'd say her name. I did. "Lena." She nodded. "It's been a while." She walked in like it wasn't strange at all, like we hadn't lost more than a decade. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I watched her set her tool bag down and kneel by the window, her sleeves rolled to the elbow, a tiny smudge of paint near her wrist. "You still live around here?" I asked. "Just moved back. After my mom passed." She said it softly, like it was the kind of sentence that didn't need a reaction. I wanted to say something, but the words got stuck. She didn't look up. The room felt smaller than it should have, maybe because I was hyper-aware of everything. The sound of her screwdriver clicking. The way her knee brushed the baseboard. The faint scent of sawdust and her shampoo. The same brand, I swear. I hadn't thought about it in years, but suddenly I could smell memory. You used to hate the sound of drills, she said suddenly. I blinked. You remember that? She glanced over her shoulder. You were kind of unforgettable. Her eyes lingered just a little too long. Or maybe mine did. We talked while she worked. About nothing. About everything. I told her about college. She told me about leaving the city. We danced around the obvious. The fact that she was here in my house, fixing a window, and it felt like more than coincidence. When she stood up to leave, the light was hitting her just right. Late afternoon sun slicing through the blinds, laying gold across her face. She looked older, yes, but there was something softer there too. Something I hadn't seen when I was a kid, or maybe something I couldn't have understood back then. She brushed her hands off on her jeans, gave a satisfied nod at the window. All done. No charge. I stepped forward. Wait, what? Why not? She shrugged. Let's call it nostalgia. Then she turned to go. I followed her to the door, not ready for the moment to end. When she reached for the handle, our hands touched, just barely. Skin on skin, a second too long. She looked up at me. I'm around, you know, she said. If you ever need something fixed. And then she left, and I stood in the doorway like a complete idiot, watching her walk away. I didn't even say thank you, but I knew this wasn't over. I stayed. I told myself it was nothing, just a drink of water, a few minutes of company. But the way Lena moved around the kitchen, half absorbed, half aware of me, it didn't feel like nothing. She set 2 glasses on the counter, her hands steady, though her voice was softer than before. It's strange, isn't it? How people circle back into your life. I nodded, but my throat was dry. Yeah, strange. Her eyes flicked to mine, quick but loaded. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched too long. Not awkward, not comfortable either. More like standing at the edge of something you weren't supposed to look at. When I turned to take my glass, my hand grazed hers. Not a bump, not a clumsy accident. More like my body betraying me, reaching without permission. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers tightened just slightly on the rim of the glass, holding it between us. A pause. Her breath caught, so quiet I almost missed it. And then the sound of her phone buzzing broke it. She blinked, pulled her hand back fast, answered. Her voice was different on the call, brisk, professional. Something about a client, a project delay. But her eyes stayed on me while she spoke, like she wasn't really in the conversation at all. I shifted in my seat, guilt prickling sharp across my chest. What was I doing? She was older. She'd lived a whole life before I even knew who I was. She deserved stability, not some 20-something trying to pretend he knew what he wanted. I told myself to leave, to stand up, thank her, walk out. But I didn't. When she hung up, she sighed, rubbing her forehead. Sorry. Work never leaves me alone. I shook my head. It's fine. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was trying to read what I wasn't saying. Her eyes lingered too long, heavy and searching. And I almost said it. I missed you. I thought about you. Words that had been forming since she walked through my door days ago. Instead, I bit the inside of my cheek, forcing myself silent. Lena leaned against the counter, her arms crossed, but her voice unguarded. You grew up, she said, almost to herself. I keep seeing you as that kid who wouldn't go to bed. But you're not him anymore. Her words twisted through me. Too honest. Too dangerous. I opened my mouth, closed it again. Her gaze didn't shift. Neither did mine. The room felt suspended, like one wrong move would tip everything. She pushed off the counter slowly, stepped closer. Her hand brushed my sleeve, lighter than before, but this time, she didn't move away. And I didn't either. For a heartbeat, the whole world seemed to wait. Were we about to cross it? That invisible, forbidden line? The room was too quiet. Even the hum of the refrigerator felt loud. Her hand still rested lightly on my sleeve, not claiming, not retreating, just there. And for some reason, that small weight carried more gravity than anything I'd felt in years. I swallowed hard. "Lena." She didn't look away. "Say it." Her voice wasn't commanding. It was low, almost pleading. And suddenly I realized. She knew. She knew exactly what had been sitting in my chest since she walked back into my life. But the words felt impossible. If I said them, nothing would be the same. "You're not supposed to." I started, then stopped. Her eyes softened, but her jaw tightened. "Neither are you." That was it. The unspoken rule, laid bare. The line between us wasn't about age or history or some imagined taboo. It was about choice. About admitting out loud that what hung between us wasn't nostalgia. It was something else. "I shouldn't be here," I muttered, half standing. But she caught my wrist. Not hard, just enough. "Don't." Her touch burned. My pulse stuttered. "Why did you call me?" I asked. The question slipped out sharper than I meant. Her lips parted, but for a moment she said nothing. Then, "Because I didn't want to be alone in that house. And because I trusted you." The last words were barely audible. I sat back down slowly, my chest tight. I wanted to tell her she wasn't alone anymore. Not now. Not if she didn't want to be. But all that came out was, "You don't have to do this on your own." Her shoulders dropped, just slightly, like something inside her gave way. She turned her face toward me. Not guarded, not careful, just exposed. "You ever think about it?" she asked suddenly. "If timing had been different? If we had met now? Not then." The question hit like a blow, because I had thought about it. Constantly, ever since she showed up at my door again. Every day since last week, I admitted before I could stop myself. The silence that followed was unbearable. Her eyes searched mine, as if she was weighing what to do with the truth now that it had been spoken. I leaned forward without meaning to, closing the space inch by inch. Not a kiss, not yet, but close enough to feel her breath mix with mine. Her fingers tightened around my wrist, the only thing holding me in place. She whispered, almost trembling, "What are we doing?" I didn't answer, couldn't. We just sat there, suspended between restraint and surrender, the weight of every unspoken word pressing down. The air pulsed with the question neither of us dared finish. And in that charged silence, it felt like the next move would change everything. Her question, "What are we doing?" was still in the air when her phone buzzed again. She hesitated, then turned it over on the counter without answering. The screen lit just long enough for me to catch the name. A man's name. I froze. She noticed. Her eyes dropped to the phone, then back to me. "It's not what you think." But my stomach was already tight. "You're seeing someone?" Her laugh was short, humorless. "Not really. Not anymore." "Not anymore?" She sighed, pressing her palms against the countertop like she needed it to hold her up. "We ended it 2 months ago. He still calls. Pretends he's checking in. Really, he's just making sure I haven't moved on." The words cracked something in her voice. Brittle, defensive, and yet underneath it, raw. I leaned forward before I could stop myself. "Why didn't you block him?" Her eyes flicked to mine, sharper now. "Because some part of me still feels guilty. For leaving. For wasting years I'll never get back. And because it's easier to let him think he still has me than admit I've got nothing figured out." Her confession hung between us, heavier than anything so far. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't supposed to be here, wasn't supposed to be the one she admitted that to. But I couldn't ignore the way my chest pulled tight at the thought of her trapped in something she didn't deserve. "You're not nothing," I blurted. My voice broke a little, more desperate than I meant. "You're more than you even know." Her eyes widened, startled. Not because of the words, but because of how much truth was in them. The silence after felt like a storm waiting to break. She pushed away from the counter suddenly, pacing, her arms crossed tight. "This is dangerous. You're—" She stopped herself. "Younger," I said flatly. "Yes." I stood too, pulse racing. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't hear it in your voice every time you look at me like I'm wrong for you?" She stared at me then, breath shallow. "You are wrong for me." The words landed like a knife, but she didn't sound convinced. Not even to herself. Before I could answer, a knock rattled the front door. Sharp, unexpected. Her whole body went stiff. She whispered, "Don't," then moved fast, shoving the phone into her pocket, wiping her palms on her jeans like she needed to erase me from the moment. The knock came again. I swallowed hard. Whoever it was, whatever this was, it wasn't just about me and her anymore. And for the first time I realized whatever line we were about to cross, someone else might already be watching. The knock on the door kept echoing in my head long after it stopped. Whoever it was left, or maybe decided the silence meant no one was home. But by then, the damage was done. Lena was pacing, arms folded, jaw tight. Not at me, not exactly, but at the whole tangled mess we'd pulled into the room with us. "You should go," she said finally. Her voice was flat, practiced. I didn't move. "You don't mean that." Her head snapped up, our eyes locked, and for once, neither of us looked away. "This isn't," she exhaled sharply. "This isn't how life works. I'm older, I've made mistakes. I'm still untangling things I don't even want to talk about. And I'm not a kid anymore." I cut in, louder than I meant. The words hung there, trembling. She blinked, startled. "I know you want to protect me from whatever this is," I said, softer now, stepping closer. "But you don't get to decide what I feel, or what I'm ready for." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but no sound came. I could see the conflict in her, the part that wanted to push me away, and the part that already hadn't. Slowly, I lifted my hand, hesitated, then touched her cheek, light as I could. Her breath caught, but she didn't move. "You asked what we're doing," I whispered. "I don't know, but I know what I don't want. I don't want to walk out that door and spend the rest of my life wishing I'd said something when I had the chance." Her eyes shone in the dim light, wet but unfallen. She shook her head, but it wasn't no. It was disbelief, like she couldn't trust the moment. "Say it," she murmured. The fear in my chest didn't matter anymore. "I love you." The words were reckless, too big for the room, but they were true. Her face crumpled, the guarded walls breaking. A sound escaped her, half laugh, half sob. She pressed her forehead against mine, eyes closed, like the only way to survive hearing it was to not look at me at all. "You don't know what you're doing," she whispered. "Maybe not," I admitted. "But I know what I want. You." Her hands gripped my shirt, desperate, torn between pushing me away and holding me closer. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded. Every breath, every tremor, every unspoken word lived inside it. Finally, she opened her eyes, searching mine with a rawness I'd never seen before. "This can ruin us both," she said. "Or save us," I answered. And then she kissed me, not careful, not cautious, but with years of regret and weeks of silence breaking open all at once. The kiss ended, but neither of us stepped back. Her hands were still clutching my shirt, my thumb still against her cheek. The world felt too still, too fragile, like even breathing too loud might shatter what had just happened. When she finally pulled away, she laughed under her breath, shaking her head. "God, this is insane." "Yeah?" I whispered, smiling despite the ache in my chest. "But so are we." We sat down after, the weight of it all pressing around us. No more pretending. No more circling the edges. "I don't know how this looks to anyone else," she admitted, staring at her hands. "I don't know if it's fair to you. I don't know if I can promise forever. I reached over, covering her hand with mine. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for real. That landed. Her shoulders softened, the sharp edges of her voice fading into something vulnerable, something honest. For the first time, I realized she wasn't untouchable. She wasn't the confident, unshakable figure I'd remembered from childhood. She was flawed, scared, and still trying to put herself back together. And somehow that made me want her more. Not because she needed saving, but because she was finally letting herself be seen. We talked for a long time after that. About her ex, about my stubbornness, about the years that had shaped us separately and the strange chance that had pulled us together again. Every fear we laid out didn't drive us apart. It drew us closer. The truth was messy, but it was ours. By the time the night had deepened into silence, we weren't hiding anymore. The line we'd been afraid to cross had vanished, not because we ignored it, but because we chose something beyond fear. Looking back, I realized the biggest change wasn't the kiss, or the confession, or even the risk we were about to take. It was the way she looked at me now, not like a kid she used to know, not like a mistake she was about to regret, but like a man she could finally, tentatively imagine letting in. And maybe that was enough. In the end, it wasn't about right or wrong, young or old, past or present. It was about two people who had lost pieces of themselves somewhere along the way, and found a part of it again in each other. Maybe that's all love ever is. Not perfect, not easy, but real.